Hello and welcome to another episode of It's More Than Just Sports, a show where we talk about topics that affect all of us and not just in the sporting realm. I'm your host, Steven Babb. Today I'm joined by a panel of Mike Mulberg, Nikki Requejo, and Miles Perry. We'll be discussing nutrition and how it affects younger people. So Mike, nutrition, what does that mean to you?
First thing that comes to my mind is throwback to elementary school when the teachers, we used to have an assembly where they talked about healthy foods and junk food. So nutrition is eating healthy, staying healthy, carrots, vegetables, all the kind of stuff I hate.
Kind of the food pyramid.
The food pyramid,
kind
yeah.
of every different level.
Yeah, top of my pyramid's milkshakes, by the way. So.
Thankfully, we've come a long way from that food pyramid. Nikki, what do you think when you think of nutrition and how it relates to young people?
Nutrition for me is basically the lifestyle that one person takes. You know, like you are based on what you eat. You are what you eat. It's so true when people say that. So for me, that is nutrition. So for young adults, I believe that they don't really understand that yet, but it's so important because their development, because they're still growing and everything, is based on their nutrition and the food that they are taking in. So that's nutrition.
So Miles, when I was younger, your guys' age, my diet was horrible. And that's because I didn't have the right guidance. I mean, shoot, the internet was actually in its infancy, so it wasn't like I could Google a whole bunch of stuff. So in your life and your diet, like what's important to you and kind of what do you look for?
In my diet, I look for just to eat green food. Anything green, anything like I could get from like produce section, anything like that, like that's what I look to put in my diet because I know it's better for me.
Mike, so I know amongst younger folks, especially college students, money is a big issue.
Yeah.
So where do you go to buy your food, and how much do you kind of spend, and what do you look at?
So at my college I go to right now, it's a really small school. We just have one cafeteria, and I'm not gonna lie, it's not that good of a cafeteria. So I spend a good amount of time eating out. A problem I face in Reading is there's not a lot of clean food. There's a lot of McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King. It's kind of hard to find some clean food. And the cleanest food they got there is, I think, Chipotle and Panda, which we all know that's still not that fresh. So what I try to do is I'll give myself like $50 every week, and then I'll go to Winco or I'll go to Walmart, or sometimes I go to Safeway if I have a little bit of extra money. But I'm just trying to find stuff that's just high in protein, low in fat. I mean, I like drinking water, so I'm not really a soda guy, so I don't got to worry about spending money on that. So I spend the $3 for a flat of water, and I mean, that lasts me a week right there. So
you bring up a good point. Walmart, Winco versus stores like Safeway and Whole Foods. Nikki, how big does money come into a factor? Like a big factor money is in a young person's diet.
In a young person's diet, it's funny that he brought it up because usually young adults have the idea that eating outside, like eating cheaper food, fast food is gonna be cheaper. But in reality, if you start adding up all their meals, they're paying way more of what they would actually pay in like supermarket or like eating healthier foods. For example, like a meal in McDonald's, at least like the medium size, it would cost you $6 to $10 minimum. Multiply that for 3 meals that you might eat, like breakfast, lunch, and like dinner. Let's be real, like that's gonna happen. That's already like almost $40 to $50 if you are like adding a size or like adding the ice cream or like, oh, now I feel like eating a cookie. That's $50 that at least if you go to Winco, you can get like easily 3 plates of like chicken, and then your veggies, and even for way cheaper, like even for like $30. So if young adults are trying to save money by eating in like fast food, I think they have to realize that that's not true and that's not the reality of things. I think when the reality of young adults eating in fast food is because they don't set the time to cook for themselves. I think that's where the fast food comes. Like it's the idea of like, I don't have time to do this. But is it that you don't have time to do it, or just you're not willing to give the time to do it?
Kind of a lack of information, a lack of know-how, and maybe just not really understanding. Now, my mother, and I was raised in a house with just my mom, and she's not a very good cook, and so also
Sorry,
not a very healthy cook. But through experiences, I worked in the restaurant industry for 15 years. I wasn't cooking in the kitchen, but I had to learn and know about nutrition and all the food that was coming out of the kitchen. Miles, what's your experience like in the kitchen? Do you cook much? Do you know how to cook much?
See, I can cook breakfast food, but anything after breakfast, it's like, unless it's a sandwich, I get 2 pieces of bread, put meat in it. Yeah, I'm not good at it.
Miles, is your breakfast cereal? That's what you know how to
Okay,
cook.
breakfast cereal. It goes to breakfast cereal. I can cook eggs and then
Eggos?
waffles.
Some Eggo waffles?
Eggo waffles.
Hey.
Hey. Can't go wrong with those.
Oh my God.
Can't go wrong with
I
those.
think that's another big thing too, is the microwave.
Oh yeah.
The microwave cooks unhealthy food. That's all that it really cooks, is unhealthy, high in salt,
It does.
high in fat food. And so actually taking the time to learn how to cook, I'm actually a really good cook at home, and I'm really good at making up stuff on the fly. But it does take a little bit of time, a little bit of patience and practice. However, if you are going to go to, say, McDonald's, you're sitting at home, you walk out your car, you jump in, you drive, you waste
Yeah.
gas, you get to McDonald's, you wait in line, it's still pretty quick, but say 10 minutes, right? I think that's, it's average,
Yeah.
10 minutes or so, from when you walk into the door to get your food. You sit down, you eat it, you drive back. So let's say half an hour, depending on how far you live from McDonald's. In a half an hour, I could have everything prepped, cooked, or ready to cook, or in the oven cooking. And then I sit back and watch, finish watching the game, or go back to watching the game and then pull everything out. A big thing for you guys that hasn't been mentioned yet. So yes, Safeway is kind of pricey sometimes. Whole Foods is really pricey. And not every city or every neighborhood has a Whole Foods, unfortunately. But what you are seeing a lot more now is farmers markets. If you go to a farmer's market, you can buy fresh fruit and produce for insanely cheap. Because you're cutting out the middleman. You can even, cheaper than Winco and Save Max prices, you're getting fresh vegetables, and you can actually talk to the farmers that it's coming from. So some of the restaurants that I've worked in, we had to know who our farmers were, we had to know who our ranchers were, we had to know how the meat and proteins were raised, and everything specific about the food, which I think is kind of lacking. You folks are of the internet age. I grew up without the internet. And here you are, you can Google, you can find things, find recipes. There's YouTube videos on how to cook. And there's definitely things that you can do to help improve your diets. Now, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm not saying for every 3 meals every day you're going to have to cook, because it's not practical. You guys are full-time students. It's difficult to find the extra time, but it's definitely possible out there.
It's definitely possible. And yes, we're students. We are, busy. We have jobs also besides,
Yes.
college. I understand that people are busy. However, there's things that we can do. For example, I meal prep every single Sunday, because I know that throughout the week I don't have the time to cook myself a breakfast and then a lunch and a meal and a dinner. At the end of the day, I truly don't have the time to do it. But I'm a huge believer that it's really important what I put into my body, because that's how am I gonna grow. Like my hair, my eye, like everything is based on what I put inside my body, and like the energy that I'm gonna have throughout the day is based on what I eat. So that's why I give myself literally like 1 hour or 2 every Sunday to cook all my meals. So now, I don't have to even worry, oh my God, what am I gonna eat, in 3 hours? You know what I mean? Because I already have my meal. So I think that's something that has to be learned in the young, with all the young students, throughout the students, that meal prep is a good option, especially if you're living outside your parents' house. If you're, first timer, living outside, it's a great opportunity to for you to eat healthy and be healthy, and at the same time save money, save time. It's a perfect solution.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Miles, have you ever tried to meal prep, or do you know anybody that meal preps on Sundays?
I used to meal prep when I used to play football, and it worked for a little bit, but honestly, it's just hard to be consistent with it.
It is.
And usually, if I didn't meal prep, I'd go to McDonald's for a game, go get a burger.
Yeah, because it's easy. It's the convenience.
Easy, exactly.
But a problem I feel like I face too is sometimes when I go out to eat fast food, after I'm done paying $10 for a meal, I'm still hungry sometimes.
Because you're not filling your body with the ingredients and the nutrients that your body needs, which I understand, like you said, it's hard to meal prep. It's hard. However, something that is key in this theme. It's the mentality of the person that is gonna eat. Because, for example, you can go to McDonald's. Like, me, for example, I used to work at McDonald's. I was like the manager at McDonald's. And like all my coworkers, like they would be, you know, like when you work at McDonald's, you get half prices of the meal. And it's already cheap. So imagine like half price. Everybody was like eating, you know, like the burger and the burritos and all those things. And they were like, I'm not full. Just what you just said. Like, I'm really not full. Like, I'm not feeling satisfied. And that's because you're not eating nutrients. However, every single restaurant, and like, I really want to clarify this because a lot of people is like, I don't like to go out and eat because there's no healthy options. No. There's every single restaurant has a healthy option for you guys. Even McDonald's, it has the salads. Like you can ask for grilled chicken instead of like, you know, like the breaded one, the fried chicken. Instead of a burger, instead of like the fries.
Best. It tastes better.
Which I understand, but that's why I'm saying like the mentality is what is missing in the education of the person. If you have the mentality of like, I want to be healthy, I want to live a healthy, fulfilling life, then you know that eating those nuggets in like refried and reheated chicken is not going to be the best thing for you.
It is, and you know, I agree with that point. And you're from Spain.
I'm from Spain. Yeah.
And I think as Americans, we have kind of a skewed sense of priorities, and kind of our mentality is different than in other places, where you know, food for us sometimes isn't a communal thing or a family thing in this country. And so to go out singularly by yourself and eat by yourself is kind of a regular occurrence. Whereas if you have other people to eat with, it's not so much, you know, you're able to actually come together. You can share cooking ideas, you can share thoughts on nutrition, and even grab a buddy. You guys go to a farmer's market and check it out, because I think you'll really be impressed with what you can buy for relatively inexpensive. And then, as Nikki mentioned, spend a couple hours on Sunday. You can, you know, steam your vegetables, or you can cook a few things. You can actually even use that time while you're steaming your vegetables or baking your chicken to look online and look at other recipes for the following week. And that right there is 2 hours out of your day. You know, put a Cubs game on, and you know, make sure the radio's turned or the volume's turned up, and you can sit there and, you know, do your stuff in the kitchen while you're getting you know, the best out of your meals for that week. So I hope that you have watched this episode, kind of can come away with a little bit of a better understanding of nutrition, especially as it affects young people, and maybe have some new ideas. And honestly, Google and YouTube cooking things. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'll still look up temperatures and cooking times here and there. But, you know, hopefully you come away learning something and eating a little bit better from here on out. That's going to do it for this episode of It's More Than Just Sports. I'd like to thank my panel, Mike Mulberg, Nikki Requejo, and Miles Perry. And I'm your host, Steven Babb. Until next time.
The exponential growth from the program from my first year to my third year now, that's what keeps me coming back and keeps me excited and just like fulfills me as a person.
It's so impressive, and we every time we walk in here, you guys are doing something different. It's great. It's
nothing but opportunities here, and we have sports to cover, we have the equipment.
Because the more ambitious you are, the more opportunities you'll have.
On-the-job training is huge.
Get the hands-on experience.
When someone asks who can do it, you know, you can raise your hand and say, I can do it, so.